I am Vorik of the 6th Dominion Scout Fleet. In my career, I have written 43 mission reports. Every single one was clean. Every single one was precise. Every single one was so detailed that my superiors stopped reading before the end. That was considered success. But this report will not be like the others. This report will not be boring. What happened on the third planet of the solar system, the planet called Earth, was not a normal mission. It was not stressed. It was not confusion. It was not error. It was failure. And I need to explain why that we had watched Earth for 11 years, 11 years of silent drones in orbit, 11 years of scanning the air, 11 years of mapping cities, forests, oceans, and military bases, 11 years of studying their weapons, population, and behavior. Commander Draxus himself led the operation, but he called it the most prepared invasion in Dominion history. There was a full strategy plan. There were speeches. There were detailed maps. Everything was ready. We believed Earth would fall quickly. We were wrong. Exactly 0300 hours local time. Our fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The planet appeared below us, blue, green, quiet, spinning peacefully, and alarms, panic, sign that it even knew we were there. Commander Draxus stood at the front viewport. He folded his arms and spoke confidently. 12 landing pods. 400 soldiers. Advanced weapons. This will be textbook. Everyone believed him. We deployed. Pod 7 landed first. They chose a location identified by our maps as safe, low population, dense vegetation, minimal infrastructure. A national park. Everything in the data was correct. What the data did not prepare us for was what lived inside that vegetation. I was in Pod 3. We received Pod 7's transmission immediately after landing. First message. Landing confirmed. Ground stable. Establishing perimeter. Normal procedure. Then, 40 seconds later, something is watching us. Another pause. Then louder. Something is watching us from the tree. Then screaming. Then static. Commander Draxus opened the live external feed on the screen. We saw 6 soldiers running back toward their pod. Running fast. Faster than I had ever seen trained troops move. Behind them, sitting calmly on a tree branch, was a large animal. The database identified it as a brown bear. It was not chasing them. It was not attacking. It was simply sitting there, enormous, silent. Watching, our soldiers were terrified. Commander Draxus spoke quietly. They are afraid of local wildlife. Lieutenant Pren replied carefully, "It is very large." The bear did not move. It just sat there. After 11 minutes, it dropped from the branch, walked past our soldiers without touching them, sniffed the landing pod, then disappeared into the forest. Our troops stayed frozen for several more minutes. Morale had already begun to change, and we had not even met the humans yet. Pod 3 landed 20 minutes later on a ridge above an open meadow. The air felt different immediately. It was thick, wet, heavy in the lungs. Nothing like the clean atmosphere reports we had studied for years. I stepped out of the pod. The forest around us was alive with sound. Not military sound, not mechanical sound, natural sound, rustling, movement, calls from unseen places. And then we saw them. In the meadow below stood a group of animals. About 14. Database classification. Deer. They were grazing. Calmly in the early morning fog. They did not run. They did not scatter. That was unusual. Most species react to armed presence. These did not. One deer at the edge of the group slowly turned its head. It looked directly at us. And it did not move. Specialist Pharaoh raised his weapon. Contact. I lowered his arm slightly. They are deer. Animals usually flee threats, he said. Yes. Then why isn't it running? That was the question. The deer stood there, watching us. Feared, panic, aggression. Just observation. For nearly 3 minutes, we stared at each other, and I felt something uncomfortable. Not danger. Not attack. Assessment. The deer was judging us. Eventually, it returned to grazing to AS if we had passed a silent test and were no longer interesting. Pharaoh looked relieved. I noted in my log. Local fauna shows unusual confidence response. We continued toward the rally point. Incidents for 2 kilometers, but the planet never felt quiet. It felt aware. T0500 hours. Reports came in from all squads. The situation was not improving. Point 3 squads had retreated from their landing zones. Not because of weapons, because of wildlife. Point 1 squad had locked themselves inside their pod after hearing movement nearby. Another squad reported a slow object approaching their perimeter for over an hour. IT turned out to be a tortoise, a slow-moving animal. Our elite soldiers had treated it like a tactical threat. Then came Captain Wallow's report. His squad was being followed for 40 minutes. Every time they stopped, it stopped. Every time they changed direction, it changed direction. Twice, it appeared in front of them. The database identified it as a coyote. Captain Wallow asked if it was armed. IT was not, but it was tracking them, deliberately, silently. Commander Draxus did not respond for several seconds. Because this was no longer random behavior. This was coordination. Then something even more confusing happened. Pod 9 reported encountering a human. Not a soldier. Not armed. Just one individual, standing on a trail, holding a cup of hot liquid, wearing boots and a heavy jacket. The squad emerged with weapons raised. The human looked at them calmly and said, after translation, "You boys lost? No feared and oh shocked and oh running." Just casual conversation. That moment changed everything. Because if the locals were afraid, this would have been simple. But they were not afraid. Not of bears, not of coyotes, not of our soldiers, and not of our fleet. Earth did not react like a conquered planet. IT reacted like a planet that had survived worse. And we had not yet realized the full mistake we made. That realization would come soon. Very soon. The true collapse began when Commander Draxus ordered us to move toward the nearest human settlement. Until that point, we still believed this was manageable. Wildlife could be controlled. Resistance could be analyzed. Humans would behave logically when faced with advanced weapons. That assumption was about to fail. That we entered what the database called a cattle ranch. IT first, it looked simple. Open land, fences, large animals scattered across the field. But as we stepped forward, the animals turned. Toward us, they were massive, much larger than expected. The database had photos, but photos did not prepare you for standing beside something that weighs more than a transport vehicle and looks at you with complete indifference. These were cattle, hundreds of them, and they were not reacting to us at all. Behind the cattle sat a human woman on a horse. She appeared around 50 years old. Wide hat, rope in one hand, drink in the other. She watched our armed formation like someone watching unexpected weather. Not afraid, not impressed, just mildly annoyed. Commander Draxus stepped forward. He activated his translator and spoke clearly. "Your planet is now under Dominion authority. Lower weapons and submit." The woman looked at him, then at the soldiers, then back at him. She spoke. The translation system processed it. "When to Sam Hill." There was no panic in her voice, only irritation. Draxus tried again. She responded calmly. "I've got 400 head of cattle to move, a fence to fix, and 2 workers out sick. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying." Then she turned her horse and began moving the cattle as if we were background noise. The cattle moved around our soldiers like water around rocks. One cow stopped directly in front of Pharaoh and breathed on him. Pharaoh did not move. Not because he was brave, but because moving felt like accepting defeat, and none of us were ready for that, yet that we regrouped near the trees. Full squad reports came in. The situation was worse than expected. Point 1 squad had been blocked by a moose standing in a river. Crossing .IT did not attack. .IT simply stood there for 90 minutes, refusing to move. The squad eventually went around it. Another squad had been overwhelmed by thousands of tiny insects. The database called them mosquitoes, individually harmless, together unstoppable. Elite soldiers were slapping themselves. Unable to focus. Point 2 had allergic reactions. Point 1 could not concentrate because he had been bitten repeatedly inside his ear. Pod 8 encountered a human child, approximately 8 years old, building something from sticks. The soldiers approached carefully. The child looked up and said, "You look like a frog," then asked if they wanted to help build a fort. When they declined, the child called them weird and continued building. And oh feared, and oh hesitation. Maximum confidence. The squad quietly left. Then came the report that truly changed the atmosphere. Pod 12 entered small town. They announced the invasion through translators. N01 are N0 alarms. Point one elderly human took a photo that a diner placed a sign in the window. Alien special. 2 for 1 coffee. Inside, people were excited, pointing, talking. Curious, not terrified. Curious. Commander Draxus read all reports in silence. Then he finally spoke. They're not afraid of us. He was correct. Earth did not respond to intimidation. IT did not react to power displays. IT did not show submission. And that meant something terrifying. Because if fear does not control a species, then something else does. And we had not yet discovered what that was. Commander Draxus sat on a fallen log in the forest. For the first time since the invasion began, he did not look confident, that he looked thoughtful. The mission was supposed to be simple. Advanced weapons, organized strategy, superior technology. Instead, we were being disrupted by animals, insects, and civilians who behaved as if we were not important. That was the real problem. Not resistance, indifference. Draxus spoke quietly. We analyzed their military, their weapons, their political systems, their industry. He paused. We did not analyze their disposition. That word stayed in the air. Disposition. Their mindset, their history, their instincts. That we studied their machines, but we did not study their survival. That I began to understand something important. Earth is a planet that tries to kill its inhabitants. Floods, storms, earthquakes, extreme heat, extreme cold, diseases, predators, limited resources. Any weakness would have eliminated them long ago. But humans survived all of it. Generation after generation. They did not become fragile. They became adaptable. That explained the bear. IT explained the moose. IT explained the deer. IT explained the coyote. Earth's animals were not afraid either. They had learned survival through constant pressure. And so had the humans. That we were not invading a peaceful world. We were walking into a world that had trained its life to endure. Draxus ordered all units to return to the landing pods. There would be no further ground advancement. The Dominion Council would need a report. A reason. Something that sounded controlled, professional. He asked me to write it. I began documenting everything carefully. Encounters with wildlife, unexpected environmental resistance, squad morale adjustment, operational complications. The words felt small compared to what we experienced, because the truth was simple. That we were not feared, not by animals, not by children, not by farmers, not by entire towns. Before departure, the cattle rancher returned to the clearing. She sat on her horse at the edge of the field, watching us prepare to leave. She did not approach. She did not threaten. She simply observed, calm, patient, unbothered. Commander Draxus addressed her one last time. He explained that we were reassessing. She listened, then said casually, "You came all this way, and some cows gave you trouble?" There was no insult in her voice, just observation. As if we had failed a basic test. She turned her horse and left it. No celebration, no confrontation. Just routine life continuing. As if an interstellar fleet had been no more disruptive than a passing storm. T0847 hours. We lifted off. From orbit, Earth looked exactly the same. Blue oceans, Greenland, quiet atmosphere. Completely unbothered. Commander Draxus stood at the viewport in silence. For a long time, Lieutenant Pren asked whether Earth should be flagged as a threat. Draxus considered the question carefully, then answered, "Flag it as complicated." That was the closest word we had for failure without admitting it. And as we left the system, I finalized my report. I included every encounter. The bear, the deer, the coyote, the child, the town, the rancher. The conclusion, I wrote, Planet Earth attempted acquisition unsuccessful. Species shows no recognized fear response. Recommend indefinite postponement of all operations. Then, after a pause, I added one final line. They have survived worse. They will be fine. We, however, may need time. The Dominion Council responded 3 weeks later. One sentence. Report received. Planet Earth reclassified. Do not return. And that is how a fully prepared invasion fleet retreated from a planet that did not even notice it was being invaded. We returned to Dominion space in silence, in O celebration, in O victory report, in O medals. Just quiet processing. For the first time in my career, no one joked in the mess hall. Even Commander Draxus remained in his quarters longer than usual. Earth had not defeated us with weapons that IT had defeated our assumptions. The Council demanded answers. They asked if Earth had hidden defenses. They asked if we had missed advanced technology. They asked if the planet had secret military forces. The answer was no. There were no hidden fleets at NO shield systems at NO planetary weapons. Only life and confidence. During the debriefing, I explained what we failed to understand. Earth is not a planet of comfort. IT is a planet of challenge. Its environment is harsh. Its history is full of extinction events. Its species survive by adapting, not by hiding. When we landed with weapons, armor, and formation tactics, we were not the most dangerous thing there. We were just another unpredictable event. And Earth had already survived. Thousands of those. The bear did not chase. The deer did not flee. The coyote coordinated. The insects operated in groups. The moose blocked movement. The humans remained calm. Not because they were stronger than us, but because they were used to pressure. The most powerful moment was not when we saw weapons at IT, was when we saw indifference. Indifference means you are not important enough to fear. And that is more destabilizing than hostility, because hostility at least acknowledges you. Earth did not react. Emotionally, that IT reacted practically. We were simply another environmental factor. Commander Draxus summarized it best. We prepared for resistance. We encountered resilience. There is a difference. Resistance fights back. Resilience survives anything. Earth is built on resilience. The final classification decision came quickly. The Dominion Council issued one instruction: do not return. Not because Earth was dangerous, but because it was not worth the cost. Any future attempt would face the same result. Not defeat in battle, but failure in intimidation. And the Dominion does not conquer planets that cannot be impressed. That I am my final personal note. I wrote something I did not expect to write in my career. Earth does not need protection from invaders. IT has already been tested by nature itself. That, if anything, invaders would need protection from Earth. Not because of weapons, but because of endurance. That planet trains its life to survive, and anything that survives that long does not break easily. A SR fleet drifted away. I looked once more at the blue sphere shrinking in the viewport. That IT looked peaceful, because it was peaceful, not weak, not afraid, just confident in its own survival. Somewhere below us, a rancher fixed a fence that a child built a fort, that a coyote moved across a ridge, that a bear sat in a tree, and humanity continued its day, unaware that an invasion had occurred and that it had ended. This is my full report. Planet Earth. Complicated. Invasion. Unsuccessful. Recommendation. Avoid. And if any future Dominion commander asks why, I will simply say this. We arrived prepared for war. But Earth has already spent its entire history surviving one dot, and that makes it far more dangerous than we expected.